So let's begin with the Epstein case. And joining us now is former special agent at the FBI Counterintelligence Division, Asha Rangappa, political analyst and co-host of the #Sisters-in-Law podcast, Kimberly Atkins-Storr, and Semaphore White House correspondent Shelby Talcott. Glad to have you all here. Shelby, the president hasn't shut down the idea of pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Why not? What is Trump's inner circle telling him?
You know, it's really interesting because I've talked to a lot of administration officials and a lot of people close to the president sort of in this MAGA universe. I haven't heard anybody suggest to me that it would be a good idea to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, even setting aside sort of what she has been convicted of, just politically for the president. Nobody has sort of laid that out, that they think that it would be beneficial to the president. They actually think the exact opposite, that it would complicate things. It's not something that the majority of the base seems to want. And so I thought it was really interesting, his response there, because when I talk to people inside and around the White House, the general consensus is this should not happen.
Well, I mean, it seems what Shelby Maxwell may know and what could be in the Epstein files, that is giving the Trump team a real headache, because we've been talking about this for weeks now with no apparent end in sight. Is the information in those files and in Maxwell's memory more damaging to the administration than all the fallout we're seeing now?
I think it's an open question. And I've talked to a lot of people who argue, you know, this is one of the most investigated, looked into situations in decades. And so there's a lot of skepticism that there's going to be some sort of bombshell that comes out of this that we don't already know. And then the other question, of course, is this Ghislaine Maxwell interview, is the release of testimony, is that going to satisfy the base who for years now have sort of thought that there was some sort of unknown bombshell waiting to be released?
What do you think about that, Kimberly? I mean, is the alleged covering up worth it politically for Trump if it is that bad?
Yeah, it's hard to see how that really makes any sense, because this interview with Maxwell doesn't make sense politically, as you've just been talking about, because folks within Trump's own base, as well as other folks outside of the base, believe that there are powerful people who are not being held to account in this case and want more transparency. But on the one hand, Ghislaine Maxwell, legally speaking, is the most unreliable witness you can possibly say. She's clearly doing it because she wants to get her sentence reduced or eliminated altogether, be released, and that means she is incentivized to say anything. She is sitting in prison right now with very little chance of getting out anytime soon. So it's not reliable information, but whatever from it is released is not going to be satisfactory to those who are still clamoring for more transparency. So it seems like a lose-lose situation.
And Asha, here is some of what Trump had to say about the meetings between Deputy AG Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. Take a listen.
I don't know anything about the conversation. I haven't really been following it. A lot of people are asking me about pardons. Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got. You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing.
Look, you're also a lawyer. So when Todd Blanche reports back to Trump, is he doing it in his capacity as the Deputy Attorney General for the country, or as Trump's personal attorney, as he once was? And still, apparently, if you listen to the former AG Eric Holder, has said that he continues in that role as well. Is the fact that we have to ask that question an issue in itself a problem?
That's exactly what I was going to say, Alex, is that the fact that you're asking that question tells you that this is a conflict. Let's remember that as Deputy Attorney General, his client is the people of the United States of America. And the people of the United States of America have already prosecuted a case against Ghislaine Maxwell and obtained a conviction, and she has been sentenced to 20 years. So it is just on its face not in the interest of his client to go and interview her. And I can tell you that, you know, having been an FBI agent, It's highly unusual to go and interview someone when you are probably one of the people least familiar with that case. Who is familiar with that case? Well, there's the prosecutor, Maureen Comey, who was fired.
Yeah.
There are probably many FBI agents, but he didn't take any of them. So how are you going to interview someone who's in a position you think to give you information when you don't even know whether what they're saying is true? That's the entire point. You go in knowing more than your subject. And that is clearly not happening here. And whatever information that she could potentially provide is never going to lead to any kind of prosecution. As we just heard, she's probably the most unreliable person. I mean, they're not going to build a case around her. There's no point here.
Right. It's like Todd Blanche is going in fishing for information rather than corroborating information that he would already have. So, Asha, we've also not heard much from FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino recently, despite their interest in releasing the Epstein files. So there's the report last week. The FBI allegedly combed through the Epstein files. They're looking for Donald Trump's name. Why aren't the FBI leaders pursuing this anymore? And can new investigations be opened up at this point? Or is it case closed, as the administration says?
Well, Alex, this case has now been investigated, by my count, 4 times. There was the investigation in 2006 that was brought by the Southern District of Florida, which got that sweetheart deal by Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney there. There was the investigation that led to the charges against Epstein himself in 2019 by the Southern District of New York. There was the investigation that led to the charges and conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell in 2020. And then since Trump took office, there have been hundreds of agents combing through thousands of pages of this. So I think the question is, it can be reinvestigated, but for what? The Justice Department has already said there's nobody that can be charged. So right now, you're either going to be transparent or you are trying to come up with a narrative that substantiates a conspiracy that you have promised to people, and you need to cherry pick evidence. And it's one or the other. There's not going to be, a real case, I think, brought out of this, because I think if there were more people who could be charged, they would have been by now.
To that end, Kimberly, the administration certainly knows large portions of the MAGA base they won't be satisfied with their efforts so far. And you have right-wing influencers, they have been on this story for years, and they think that Ghislaine Maxwell holds the key to unlocking the truth. Maxwell's been charged with perjury, so it's possible she may be telling Todd Blanche what he wants to hear and not the full story. Ultimately, these influencers, are they going to accept what she has to say?
I highly doubt it. I mean, there is already disagreement among the influencer crowd about the veracity of her testimony for the reasons that we've been stated. This is someone who has been convicted for trafficking children and who has been caught in lies before. So this really isn't worth it. But it's also worth remembering the Department of Justice is not an organization that seeks to put out information for the public good. That is Congress. That's the job of Congress to do. The DOJ is supposed to be looking for evidence of a crime. And that's what this should be about. But as Asha pointed out, this case has already been investigated and investigated and investigated. So that's not the point here. Now, if Congress wants to subpoena records and try to cast sunlight on the investigation in that way for the public good, they have the ability to do that. They have subpoena power, but that's not what the DOJ is supposed to be doing in the first place.
Todd Blanche, Kimberly, said on Thursday, before his second day with Maxwell, that the DOJ would release information about the meetings, quote, at the appropriate time. When is that? And will it ever be given to the public?
Whatever they say it is, and whatever the information they decide it is. I mean, this is a part, much like the request to unseal grand jury testimony, which would have revealed little anyway, and even if it is released, would be redacted. This is part of the theater that the Trump administration seems to be trying to use to trick the influencers and members of their base who are angered by not being delivered what they thought they would be be given. And it just shows the lengths to which the administration is going to try to fool their own supporters, but it clearly isn't working.
Are you hearing, Shelby, anyone inside the administration that is pushing for more the releasing of the files?
Well, yeah, I think that there are certainly people within the FBI who still want, this is how this whole thing started. I'll remind everybody, there was that 2-page unsigned DOJ FBI memo that effectively closed the investigation. But remember, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, all these other folks were really frustrated and felt like there was more that could be released. That frustration remains. There are people inside the FBI who still want more things to be released. And so there's still sort of this quiet debate. And then, of course, you have the Trump base, who has been relentless in letting the president know that they are unsatisfied with how this has all happened. And so as a result, you've seen how the president and the DOJ have sort of shifted from saying, OK, case closed, to, OK, we'll try to release the testimony, and we'll also interview Ghislaine Maxwell. You're seeing them shift, and that's because of that pressure inside and outside of the administration.
OK.